In the first 2 seasons of Squid Game, viewers witnessed 9 official games as well as a few special games, all of which led to the elimination of many players. Some of the games were rather tame, while others were so deadly that they took out over 3/4 of the players. So today, I will be diving into the deadliest games in Squid Game. The first game we saw was Season 1's Red Light, Green Light. Given that no one in the entire arena had any clue that this place was a bloodbath, the first sight of blood really did a number on the players, as the panic that arose began to weed out many of the players that weren't suited to play the games. 255 players were sniped during the course of this game, which was 55.92% of the original population, and this game was the 4th deadliest out of the 17 events featured in today's video. After facing the reality of the punishment of being eliminated, the majority of the players voted to leave the games, and when they were reminded of the lives that they had back at home and how it wasn't really much better in the outside world, 187 of the 201 survivors returned to play again. The 14 players eliminated here were the only ones to survive elimination, but either way, that's 6.97% of the remaining players gone. This event got 14th place. The 187 players then found themselves playing a game of Dalgona, where some of them weren't as lucky as the others. This game ultimately led to the elimination of 79 more players, taking out 42.25% of the participants, ranking it as the 7th deadliest game. After this, 108 players are left, and that's a bit too much for them to easily begin the 3rd game. So, they put players in the malnutrition game. This causes them to lash out with their hangriness after realizing that killing other players adds to the piggy bank, and after a few minutes of the Hunger Games special, 28 players were eliminated, lowering the player count to 80. This event removes 25.93% of remaining players, ranking 10th in the list of deadliest. The guards then walk the group of 80 into the 3rd game and put them in a tug-of-war match. Easily enough, half of the teams are dropped in this terrifying event, causing 40 deaths and lowering the player count by exactly 50%. This game ties for 5th place. Then, we have another special event. Even though Gi-hoon convinces player 101 to not attack that night, something else major occurs. The corruption is discovered by the frontman, and 4 guards as well as player 111 all got smoked. 1 of the 40 players were killed, and this 2.5% mortality rate was the lowest of all events in the series. Then, marbles began. Surprisingly enough, this event did not have an even 50% mortality rate. Now that they had 39 players, 1 person didn't get a partner, but even after that, 22 players were still killed during this game. Of the 39 total, there were 19 teams of 2 and 1 outcast, and 17 survivors. So, 2 of the teams must not have completed the game, leading to their complete eliminations. This game had a 56.41% mortality rate, and it was the 3rd deadliest event in the series. After this game, the 17 survivors sat quietly in a room after just having killed the closest person to them in the arena. For many people, it was just someone they had met that week, but for player 69, it was his wife. Destroyed by the consequence of beating her in marbles, player 69 was self-eliminated. This event had a 5.88% mortality rate and was in 15th place. Then, the dreaded glass bridge game began. The group of 16 played another emotionally taxing event where each decision they made contributed to the fate of the entire group. Needless to say, no one was willing to sacrifice themselves during this game, and in the end, only 3 of the 16 players survived. This gives the game an 81.25% mortality rate, making it the deadliest game in the whole series. After that game, 3 people from the former crowd of 456 were tossed right back into the room that was once so full of life. Gi-hoon's best friend was changed. He turned into a heartless creature whose only intention was to save himself. And when Gi-hoon went to report player 67's injuries from the previous game, Sung-woo struck. His greed contributed to the death of a 1/3 of remaining players, and this event was the 8th deadliest. Then, the 2 remaining players were put into the final game. After the long, emotional battle, Sung-woo also self-eliminates, but this led to the death of 50% of the remaining players, tying for 5th place. This concludes Season 1's games. Season 2 starts us off with the same red light green light we once knew, except Gi-hoon's advice saved the players relatively well, as only 91 were eliminated this time around. The mortality rate was 19.96%, ranking this game as the 12th deadliest, or if you want to get fancy, it was exactly 20% of the 455 people who played, since the frontman wasn't really there yet. Next came Season 2's Dalgona game with a 100% mortality rate. Just kidding, that didn't happen. Season 2's next event was already the 2nd game game, which was the six-legged pentathlon. Of the 365 players, or 73 teams, 110 players, or 22 teams, failed to complete the challenge. Although the number was quite high, this was only 30.14% of the existing population, making this game the 9th deadliest. Season 2 takes another immediate jump right into the mingle game, where the jungle get took 255 people and turned it into 100 people after 5 rounds. This game had a 60.78% mortality rate, putting it in second place on the list. Then, voting happens. After tensions rise as a result of each of the players' selections in the vote, a brawl breaks out in the bathroom. This leads to 5 deaths, which is 5% of the remaining players, and this was the 16th deadliest event in the series. After that, it winds down to the bedtime battle where there was not yet a definitive elimination count, but based off of a few scenes, I'll be assuming 20 players were killed. This was 21.05% of the remaining players, and this event takes 11th place. And we finally have the Rebellion, which consisted of 12 players. Assuming player 246 was killed, this game had 8 deaths, which eliminated 10.66% of all players, or 66% of the participating players. But for the sake of everyone in the room, this game landed in 13th place. And there you have it! Here's your chances of being eliminated in any of the games. What games would you survive?